to become who we want to be as individuals. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media.
John normally does the intros, but as you can see, he's depressed, so I'll do the intro, I guess, for this one. This is PSP, episode 76, Championship Sunday edition. We're coming off of, this is raw emotion. I mean, we're 30 minutes after this NFC Championship game. Detroit Lions, one of the all-time choke jobs you'll ever see. The Chiefs won the AFC Championship game. They're back in the Super Bowl, so we have to see that shit show of Taylor Swift and Kelsey and that whole thing. John, you care to have any opening remarks on this NFC Championship game?
This was the inverse of what I wanted this Sunday to be. I wanted Baltimore and obviously Detroit to win it. And if Detroit were to lose it, I wanted it to feel like, like we really gave it our all and San Francisco was the better team. But that wasn't the case. We were up 3 scores at the halftime, and I was letting the word Super Bowl enter my brain while we were waiting for the second half to start. And look, there's very warranted criticism against Dan Campbell, which I am sure we are going to get into. But drops on 3rd and 4th downs that didn't need to happen. We had a fumble on our own 25-yard line to start. And then on top of it, we didn't trust our kicker to drill 2 easy field goals. That would be a 6-point advantage. Even if we trusted him on one of those, we would have been tied. And I think we were the better team, so I think we would have won in overtime. If we let him drill both of those, we would have won the fucking game. I have never seen the Lions make it this far, nor has Mark, in our lifetimes. And it hurts so much to watch them get that close. And I think as a result of the face mask interception that wasn't an interception that turned into a 50-yard reception, just so much pain. And look, shout out to the 49ers. I respect the shit out of that team. They were a Super Bowl favorite from the start for me. I hope they end up beating Kansas City. But that sucks, man. It sucks because you don't know for sure that the Lions are going to make it back to the NFC Championship. And look, I think we have the roster, we have the coaching, we have the cap space, we have the draft picks to get there again, but you don't know for sure. Things lined up perfectly. It was right there in front of our face. We had to take that opportunity, and we did it. And that's my opening remark.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I'm going to jump right into the criticism part that you hinted at. First things first, yeah, like you said, the Detroit Lions, what a turnaround, right? Like, nobody really thought, a lot of people thought they'd be better, but nobody really thought they'd be this far. And it's a huge credit to Dan Campbell and what he's done culturally there to turn this thing around. The team bought into this whole grit. You can call it corny, but they bought into that grit mantra. And, that's the city. He's built that team around what Detroit is. The people of Detroit have bought into it. The players bought into it. The coaches bought into it. And it showed, and it carried us all the way to this moment. And in this moment, when you're there, you might as well fucking win it, right? Because like John said, we were the better team almost this entire game. And you had a 3-score lead on the San Francisco 49ers, which they don't play from behind very often. I think Shanahan was literally 0-42 until last week against the Packers when losing by 10 or more in a second half or fourth quarter. Yeah, or whatever it was. And we could have easily, forced their hand and continue to put them in a tough spot. It really comes down to a couple decisions by Dan Campbell. And I've told this to John, and if you listen to this podcast regularly, I have said this so many times over the last 3 seasons. And there have been moments where Dan Campbell makes decisions like that and wins us games. The fake punt against Kansas City earlier this year is a huge part of why we beat them in week 1, right? But then you look at the fake punt against the Green Bay Packers, that's a huge reason why we lost that game on Thanksgiving. So it goes hand in hand. The problem when you roll the dice like that, when you gamble, is there's a time and a place, right? And you have to have a feel for it as a coach. And Dan Campbell does not have the feel. You can't always hit on a 16 in blackjack. right? Because you're not always going to get the 21. A lot of the time you're going to bust. And he doesn't understand
Dan Campbell
that.
hits on 18, man.
That's the problem, right? Like you can't do, there's a time and a place for it. And in an NFC Championship game, when you have control, you have momentum, all of it. Literally, you're up 14 points in the opposing team. You're already in field goal range. It's 4th and 3 or 4, and you decide to go for it there. Instead of making a 17-point game, you just cannot ever validate that decision for me. It wasn't like it was a 50-yard field goal. I think it was like a 40-yard field goal. It wasn't. There was no decision to be had. It was you kick the field goal, you go up 17. Not only that, but the second time you get the opportunity in the same situation to kick a field goal, you don't. You go for it again. And I understand that Reynolds dropped the ball, and I understand that Gibbs fumbled, and I understand that we dropped an interception that hit us in the face mask. Right? And I understand that J-Mo dropped a touchdown on a perfect throw on the flea flicker and slowed down. I don't know why, but even still, the ball was perfect from Jared Goff, and his drop problems continue to cost us. And I know we made a couple big plays, but it's the same problems that we hinted at and we argued about, 7-8 weeks ago, John. And we'd say, hey, listen, we'll be okay. Stay calm. We'll be okay. Well, now's the time to unleash, because those same issues that we didn't address back then, Dan Campbell's decision-making in game and J-Mo's drop problems, cost us tonight. Cost us the NFC Championship game. And like you said, John, there is no guarantee you ever get back to this game. We waited a very long time to get back to an NFC Championship game. And who knows in our lifetime if we ever get back there. I mean, yeah, all the pieces look pretty strong to continue building this thing and have another opportunity, but it is very difficult to win playoff games. You've heard Dan Campbell say in his speeches all postseason. You don't get many opportunities like this, and he blew it big time. And he cost his players because of his that I don't know what it is, if it's like an ego, like I'm just like an alpha like mentality. And in some instances it's great, but in those moments, like there's just no reason to do that. Like if you're the worst team, if your team just needs like a piece of luck to win the game, you do it. When you're controlling the game and have the lead, and you've been running the ball, you've been throwing the ball, your defense is playing, stopping McCaffrey pretty much. Like, you're playing well. You're putting pressure on Brock Purdy, who wasn't handling the pressure very well at that point in the game. You continue to apply the pressure. You do not do what he did, and that was shift the momentum completely. And since that decision to go for it, that first field goal where we chose to go for it and Reynolds dropped the ball, literally not one thing went well for us. From that point forward, it was like, here's the shift. And I said it right when it happened.
Momentum shift, yeah. It was, and look, I don't think there's anything to defend about the way that the end of the game was handled. And look, I think you take a look at how Mark and I talked about these games. I think you take a look at how Mark and I talked about these teams throughout the entirety of the season. I think a lot of the takes aged really well. Obviously, Baltimore doesn't pull it off, and we'll get to that. But, Mark said 6-7 weeks ago that KC was going to be the team that makes into the Super Bowl. That take has aged beautifully well. He's got a TikTok. A bunch of people bookmark it, ready to hate on him, and he was right. And then for this game, man, it's like we previewed it with Garrett all last week, and Garrett was nice enough to respond, say good games, all that good stuff. But, the Lions did everything they needed to do to win the game. They had a run game. They successfully stopped Christian McCaffrey's run game. They successfully brought the pressure onto Brock Purdy. And as you said, Mark, I think it was really both these teams, and we'll probably title the episode something along this vein. Baltimore and the Lions beat themselves. KC did not beat Baltimore. I would say Baltimore beat themselves, and 100% for the Lions case. And look, as you're saying with Campbell and the fourth down decisions, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I get that. I understand that to be the aggressive coach that you are, it's like you can't favor it in some situations. But man, in this situation where you're up 3 scores, just chill for a second. Think about what an extra 3 points does for you, and just keep riding that lead. Even for momentum purposes, just to say you added points on a drive rather than you're walking away with 0 and giving the other team an opportunity, I think that matters so much. It's painful. The drops cost us. I thought J-Mo had a great game despite that one drop, and he made up for it later, but it was too late. It just sucks, man. I think our secondary held in there really well. I mean, they didn't really let up any huge plays except
our defense played a lot better than I ever could imagine. I mean,
yeah, it really is mistakes the offense made. You hate to admit it, but those dropped passes cost us huge on the fourth downs that we probably shouldn't have went for, and that Gibbs fumble is just never going to leave my brain. To start, okay, so 49ers shouldn't be driving down like this anyways, and they do, and they score. And then to start your drive, you give them the ball back immediately. I mean, nothing kills momentum in football, stuff like that. But
John, the key, honestly, the problem with it is the momentum was already killed. The decision to go for it and not get it killed our momentum, and then it was a down. Then instead of our momentum being dead, it was now the 49ers momentum increasing all the way. And everything that happened after that decision Dan Campbell made was just an increase of momentum from Shanahan and the Niners. And you can't give a home team, a team that's supposed to beat you, a 7.5-point favorite coming into the game, a team that's been there, done that before. You can't give them that. You're the team that's not supposed to be there. You're the team that is everyone's shocked you're in that situation. You need to continue to do what you've been doing, and you don't take risks like that at that point in the game. There's just a time and a place. That wasn't the place. A lot of people will argue, and this is obviously a hot debate. The Dan Campbell, this train. There's a lot of debate, right? Always. A lot of people love him. A lot of people, dislike his decision making, have questions, right? I've had these issues with him the entire time. I love him as a person. I think he's a great culture guy. He's a great culture fit for the city. But his decision making and when he was play calling for us, horrendous, terrible. He finally gave away the play calling to somebody else, and Ben Johnson's done a great job. But he still makes a lot of these in-game decisions, and he can't help himself, man. There are times where it works out for us, and it's awesome and it's cool, but you just can't make you can't get out of your own way. And you said it. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. A lot of people will say that, I had a few buddies texting me saying, well, Dan Campbell's mentality and going for it and all this stuff is what got us here. No, it isn't.
No,
That's not what got us to this game. What got us to this game is the building of the draft picks, the run game, our offensive line, being able to stop, changing our defense to somehow be able to stop the run after a really rough start to the season, fixing stuff to be able to get creative pressures on it. That's what got us to the game. Jared Goff and Ben Johnson's chemistry, Amon-Ra and the receivers making plays when they need to, Laporta stepping up big time as a rookie, Gibbs stepping up. That's what got us to the game, not going for it on fourth down. There was never a time where we went for it on fourth down that got us to this title game. It won us a few games in the regular season. It lost us a few games in the regular season. That balances out. But that is not why we were in this game.
I think the aggression is incredibly important, and I respect the mentality to an extent. But I don't think it's something that, like, context matters, right? I don't think it's something that, okay, I'm Dan Campbell, I'm the fourth down, go for it guy. You were up 3 scores, man. Because here's the thing. You give them the ball at the 20, or you miss the freaking field goal and you give them the ball at the 20. It doesn't matter. You're up 3 scores. You're up 3 freaking scores. Just kick the ball. So, and look, I get people are going to defend it. People are going to defend the aggression. I am Dan Campbell, pro-aggression guy on the podcast, saying you had 2 opportunities. One cost you tying the game. One cost you the winning the game. And neither you converted on the fourth down because your receivers were dropping the balls. And by the way, per your comment, the run game was there the entire time. Even when we started getting away from it and passing more, they couldn't stop it. They could not stop Gibbs or Montgomery at any point in the game. We could have 5-yard chunked our way downfield the entire time, and I think that probably would have worked, honestly. Like, I mean, there's
a lot of player error, but I'm not going to fault. There's no player to blame in this game. There really isn't. I mean, the fumble sucks. J-Mo with a drop touchdown at the end. The Reynolds drops were bad. But I can't blame the players. They played their ass off. You haven't seen many teams dominate San Francisco like that. I mean, we limited Christian McCaffrey. We had 140 some rushing yards. We had 3 players with more rushing yards than McCaffrey in the first half. What? Yeah. It's insane. We dominated them. And we came out in the second half, and it wasn't like we were playing bad. Like, we came out in the second half, and we just killed our own momentum. We shot ourselves in the foot right away.
Yeah.
Right away. And then we shot ourselves in the foot on that one, and then the second time, when he decides to not kick the field goal, we shot ourselves in the head. That's what it was. We suffered a little bit. We stayed in the fight. We stayed alive. And then the second decision to go for it and not get it, that was it. That was where the game was over. You just can't do that. I just don't understand either of them. I cannot, for the life of me, ever agree to it. Some people will say, yeah, Dan Campbell, always go for it, always be you. There's a time and a place, and this was not it.
I think we can put a lid on this, and I think, personally, I want 49ers to win the Super Bowl at this rate. I think they're a team I'm pulling for, and I'm just tired of Kansas City. I'm going to share a screen real quick just that we can get Mark and I's best bets, then we'll hop into Baltimore, KC. Mark got both of his best bets correctly. I got my best bet correct. Again, covered. That's it doesn't make me feel any better. Like I'm looking at this, I'm like, sweet, Lions covered. It could have won. As far as KC Baltimore goes, honestly, a lot of the same themes, right? Lower scoring game. Baltimore didn't feel quite as, in control of that game, but it just boils down to missed opportunities. I think the moment was too big for Zay Flowers, obviously. I mean, that taunting penalty was massive. Worst rule in football strikes. I mean, it was rough. And honestly, like people are going to fault Lamar for this. And, I'm expecting Mark to have some choice words about Lamar, but really, like I thought Lamar played fantastic. And I think that he actually tried to be the pocket passer that everybody was criticizing him for not being. And to some degree, I wanted him to let loose and try to run a little bit more when the game started to get away from him, because I don't think they had an answer for that necessarily. And the times where Lamar did need to step up and make a big pass, he made them. Like that pass when he almost got sacked towards the end of the second half there was ridiculous. That was one of the most insane passes I've ever seen a quarterback make in my entire life. So I'm definitely not out Lamar. I'm not out on this Ravens team for next year either. And I think this game was theirs to lose. And sure enough, they found a way to lose it. And again, similar fashion where it's like, man, like you just let too many moments get away from you. KC looked like they had been there 1,000 times before, and Baltimore looked like they were a deer in headlights. So,
yeah, I mean, before I get into the Ravens Chief game specifically, I want to just say, booked 2 different bet tickets on Super Bowl winner. I think it was 7 weeks ago. One was Kansas City at plus like 700 odds, and one was San Francisco at like plus 300, 400 odds. That was like right after San Fran had lost 3 straight games. So I'm sitting pretty with that one. I don't know if I'm just going to let them both ride, if I'm going to cash one out or the other. But again, we say it all the time, if you want to win money, 46 and 26 against the spread this year with over-unders included in there. I mean, my Super Bowl future bets are looking pretty damn good. I told you guys that the Chiefs would come out and win this game outright. You do not bet against Patrick Mahomes. Eventually, John and the rest of the world will understand that we are watching a reincarnation of what Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, those players, those esque guys can do. I mean, they're the best to ever do it. Like, that's what they, as underdogs, you do not poke the bear. Justin Tucker messing with him and Kelsey in pregame warmups, you're an idiot. Like, do not poke the bear. He's already got every motivation in the world to want to beat you. And then you antagonize him even more. And Kelsey played out of his mind as well. My take from this game, John, and you talked about Lamar. Lamar didn't play that well. Lamar did not play MVP football. Lamar had two incredible plays. The touchdown that you referred to where he broke the tackle, found Zay Flowers, amazing play. One of the best plays you'll see. It'll be on Aliens of the Week this week. Yeah, definitely check that out. He caught his own pass, which was pretty crazy too, and got like 15 yards after that. Flashy, amazing plays, Lamar-type things, right? He's going to do things like that no other human can do because he's a very special player. Problem is he's not a championship winner. He can't be. He has flaws in his games. When he sees a defense like Kansas City presented, and I told you Spags is going to confuse him and give him different looks. He had one interception, one that should have been intercepted that went through a linebacker's hand that had a club on it. Otherwise, it would have been picked. Literally threw it right to him. And then he had a fumble. You turn the ball over twice, should have been 3 times in an AFC Championship game when you're playing against Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to win the game. Ask anybody. You're just not going to win that game.
Is playing lights out too.
Casey's defense is great. Kansas City's defense is great. Has been all year. Yeah. And if you tell somebody, I mean, John, if you just pretend that you weren't on the Ravens from the beginning of the year all the way to this point, and I give credit to you, they did much better than I ever thought they would. But if I was just like, hey, Patrick Mahomes is going to have a number 2 ranked defense all year long.
Right.
What do you think's going to happen? Like, people act like that take was crazy. That take wasn't crazy. It was just the timing of it. The Chiefs just had a rough patch, and they didn't ever really fully hit their groove. A little Super Bowl hangover that kind of dragged into the postseason. But when the push comes to shove and you need to win a game, look to Travis Kelce, look to Patrick Mahomes, look to Andy Reid, and they'll find the other guys. They'll put the other puzzle pieces together, like the Rashee Rices and the Pachecos, and every once in a while you see, a play made by like a tight end like Gray or somebody, right? Like the Chiefs are just going to find ways to win games, and Patrick Mahomes played out of his mind. out of his mind. I mean, against
Yeah,
the
he
number
was-
one
he
defense
had
in the
what,
NFL,
almost a perfect completion percentage in the
Dude,
first half. Like that was crazy.
he came out
He was like
the
16 for
gates
17.
firing.
It was
I mean, you
insane.
watched the first series, you knew. I mean, everybody knew. I was about to text John. I didn't want to jinx myself, but I was about to text John, just be like, dude, you fucked up and you know it. Like, John's grandpa is out there trying to make side bets with me on the Ravens, Chiefs. Like, I would have happily taken it had I not already put so much money on it myself through the betting apps and stuff. But like,
Yeah.
this you just
Practice Squad Pod's biggest hater is my grandfather. So
yeah.
I'm
Well,
a
he
fan
biggest
of that.
hater of me specifically.
You're right.
He hates my takes.
He can't handle Mark's.
You can't argue 46 and 26.
46
Listen,
and 26 is hard to argue against.
Um,
Look, I think I agree with you and on a lot of that. I agree that Lamar, some of the easy play, some of the most ridiculous, impossible, alien-like plays Lamar was making, and then like the very human, rudimentary stuff, I felt like Lamar was falling short on. Agreed on the turnovers and the turnover-worthy plays, and then, this did end up becoming a defensive battle, and those turnover-worthy plays are end up costing, Baltimore from at least tying it up or something in that vein.
the karma also, Zay Flowers, John. Instant karma.
Yeah,
I loved
instant.
it. The taunt was, I mean, everyone, you can bitch about it if you want, but he there's taunting and then there's taunting. Like, that was like a very clear, when you throw the ball at someone who's still on the ground after you've already shoved him, taunt, flag's coming. Like, you just can't make that mistake. The Ravens obviously had a lot of personal fouls the whole game. That one was the worst. And then instantly, football gods gave him karma, fumbling as he crosses the goal line. That just is so killer. I mean, to drive all the way down the field
Crushes you.
after a huge play like that.
In a defensive game like this, 100%, that just absolutely crushes you. So yeah, man, I mean, that was championship weekend. Like I said, I mean, you can probably hear it in my voice. Like, I was screaming my head off. And now I'm just bummed out, obviously, from the result of that Lions game. San Fran, KC, what I have to look forward to, my takeaways from both of these teams, I think whoever is up at the half will win the game. That's how I feel about just the way these teams play defensively, how they look offensively. I just don't think any team is actually going to give a lead up. I really genuinely feel that, like, they've worked out some of the turnover worthy stuff. They've worked out a lot of that stuff. I think that whoever is going into that game with control is not going to relinquish that control the same way that we saw the Lions do it or Baltimore do it. That's my first instant impression on Super Bowl. What I'm
John,
looking
do you know what the spread? Don't look at the spread. Do you know what the spread is already of the Super Bowl? Take a guess.
I would say KC -3.
KC's the underdog.
Really?
+1.
+1.
I might literally on air right now put my life savings on that. Kansas City is going to win the Super Bowl. Like, Brock, it's a quarterback comparison, man. By the way, all the people that shat on Brock Purdy the last few weeks, kick rocks. Like, kick rocks. You, like, the guy, he's never going to look like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers,
you know who he's gonna
Josh
look like?
Allen.
Tom Brady. That's who he's going to look like.
Not even, dude, he's just, and he's not a game manager. That's a myth. And he doesn't only throw checkdowns. That's a myth. Like, these are just media stories that they're telling you because he's not supposed to be good, because he was drafted last, and because he's undersized, and because he went to Iowa State and not a powerhouse school. Like, you can make all the bullshit up. This guy is a winner, has been a winner since high school. He's a very smart quarterback. He's great against the blitz. You saw how gritty he was. Some of those tuck and runs, like, he's not sliding. He's getting the extra yards. Like, he's somebody that you want to be around. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan said it himself. He's like, he's one of the better quarterbacks I've been around, and he's been around some great ones. He's a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback. He's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and he took a very talented team to the Super Bowl. He did his damn job. He's a huge part of the reason that they came back and won this NFC title game, and he'll keep them in that Super Bowl. But I mean, when it comes to one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in Patrick Mahomes with a number one defense in the league and a very, very good defensive corner that will confuse a young quarterback like Brock Purdy. Right. I mean, I literally don't think I've ever been more sure of a pick in my life, and I guarantee you that spread will shift.
Yeah, that's why I have a take that I had is like, I think I don't know. I think obviously Pat Mahomes is the better quarterback. I think they're the better offense, but I really don't know how it's going to shake out. I just think whatever team is going to get up is not going to relinquish that lead. That's how I feel about it. That's my first impression, first take, like very early on to, kind of assessing this matchup. Maybe my opinion changes when we cover it more in depth next week, but that's how I'm currently feeling.
Yeah, we'll definitely cover this game. I'm going to do some film stuff on both these teams, really get into
lots of content.
We have 2 weeks of basically, prep for this game, and we're going to have a very good idea of who we think is going to win this game. We're going to have evidence as to why we think that.
Yep.
But
we're going to do a preseason take review too. We're going to look at all the stuff we said before the season. We count other people's receipts, and we'll count our own receipts too. I feel pretty good about that. Honestly.
We have been pretty on point with our picks have been, pretty darn good in terms of betting, but like storylines and takes that go beyond wins and losses, like we have been pretty spot on. Obviously you're going to miss some. I mean, we talk about just about everything college football and NFL there is worth talking about. So we're going to be wrong, but holy shit, have we been right most of the time. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know many other podcasts that get it right as often as we do. I'll say that. I listen to a lot of football podcasts, and we're aggressive with our takes. We don't take shame when we're wrong, and we will tell you that we were right when we were right, because
we'll have to face all of our preseason receipts and have to own up to the shit that we messed up, and we'll have to, celebrate the stuff that we got right. Last thing that I'll say before we sign off here, since last time we recorded, Jim Harbaugh stopped being the coach of University of Michigan. He is now the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Mark, what are your first takeaways on that? You being a Chargers guy, being a Justin Herbert guy, how do you actually feel that's going to, serve the Chargers, let's say, a year from now, 3 years from now?
I think the Chargers got a match made in heaven. I think it's a dream scenario for Harbaugh to walk into. Chargers have a good roster. They have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL talent-wise. You can mold him into a champion. You can get him the running game he needs that will take pressure off of him, and you'll build a tough defense because he brought his defensive coordinator, Minter, from Michigan with him. So the Chargers are going to be a very tough team. Jim Harbaugh left at the right time. I think he got what he wanted out of college football. He got what he wanted for his, alum, Michigan, and he got them the championship that they've forever wanted. He'll forever be a Michigan legend. And he wants to pursue and he's a competitor. He wants to pursue and challenge his brother and, getting a Super Bowl ring. And that's the one thing in his coaching career that he doesn't have. And he can ride off into the sunset if he's able to do that. And there is not a better spot for him to try to pursue that and start on third base than the Chargers. I mean, you have your franchise quarterback already. That's the toughest thing in football to get. And you have pieces, you have offensive weapons, and you have a pretty good damn defensive weapon. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it's a great hire. I think Michigan's going to be fine in hiring Sharon Moore. They're just going to kind of reload.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward.
I think it's a win-win for everybody. I really do.
I agree. This is kind of what we prophesized would happen, is that, he might go NFL and that Sharon Moore's going to, step up to the plate. I'm feeling good about it, and it's going to be fun watching. Maybe he breaks the Chargers curse. We don't know for sure, but, we'll see.
I'll say this, John. Being someone, I played for Coach Sharon Moore in my time at Central Michigan, and in my 1 year that I had him around as a coach, I have no doubt that he will do a great job at it. He's just one. When you have coaches, there's coaches you like, there's coaches you dislike, there's coaches you just feel kind of even keel about, and you're like, they're all right. He was one of those coaches that, no matter who you were, no matter what position you played, no matter if you were O or D, like, he brought an energy to the room. He created an atmosphere of, like, I feel welcome and I feel excited to be here, and I think we can be great because this guy's in the room and he's going to help us be great. And that's just, like, that's something that you either have or you don't have. Like, that's not something you can just, like, pull out of your ass. You have it or you don't have it. He has it. So Michigan football got a great one, and the Chargers got a great one, and I think it's a win-win.
Yeah. Hey, so this was a short episode, obviously, mostly because there's only two games to cover, but also because Mark and I wanted to be as raw as possible. We usually do a bunch of episode prep. We usually talk through some of the things we're going to talk about, what our takes might be on those things before really getting into it. Mark and I hopped in this chat and just pretty
raw
much
as it gets, man.
Yep. And
I thought John was going to cry. When we first logged in, I was like, we might see tears.
I've been holding back tears for 30 minutes.
I want to cry. When we get off air, I might just, like, get into bed, tuck myself in, and I'm not going to sleep. I mean, I'm too sad right now. And my energy's up. I'm, like, sad, but my energy's up. So I think I'm just going to, like, maybe lay in bed and just, like, stare at, like, the Lombardi Trophy with Patrick Mahomes holding it and, like, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift kissing and just look at that picture for another 2 hours.
Yeah, it hasn't really fully set in yet. The Lions season is over. And look, Lions fans, for those that are still listening and made it all the way through, there's a lot to be hopeful about. I know Mark and I are coming in doom and gloom, pessimistic. We're pissed off about this loss. We are going to the season with a lot of guys to re-sign for not a lot of money, a lot of rookies on, cheap contracts, a shit ton of draft capital, and $60 million in cap space to toy with. You trust Brad Holmes. Dan Campbell's a culture setter. I think we'll figure out the coordinator positions properly if we do lose Ben Johnson, which right now I'd say it's about 50-50. There's a lot to look forward to. So we're going to be just as excited about the Detroit Lions this season or next season as we were this season. So hopefully you guys are riding along with us. That's about all we got for this episode. Like I said, next week we're pulling up the receipts and we're previewing the Super Bowl. So looking forward to it. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
We'll catch you for the Super Bowl prep, guys. Love you.
Peace.